All right, so we're going to develop a key guard for the Acorn AAC app on an iPad mini, and we're going to eventually put the iPad in this case, a hard-shelled case, which I've already taken some measurements from, and we'll be putting those into OpenSCAD in a bit. But the first thing we need to do is measure the location of various objects on that screen that we talked about in the previous video. And as I said then, there are some objects there that will make up our communication mode. I printed out a copy of the screen so that I could physically mark which ones I want and easily remember that this one I've called opening number 1, whereas this is opening number 2, and on and on when I collect my data. Now, as you can see, it's a fairly dark app, and the border for the iPad is also dark. So what I'm going to do to make my life a little easier, I think, in this case, is I want to make sure I'm always measuring from the edge of the screen, which is right in here, not out someplace in this space or down here, and definitely want to take it out of your case so you're not accidentally measuring from the edge of the case, which I have done, but from the edge of the screen instead. And I think one way I'm going to help myself remember where these edges are is I'm going to put some masking tape around on the left edge and the bottom edge of the iPad to help me when I'm doing my measurements to put the ruler in the right place. So we'll begin by doing that, and actually I'm going to make it even easier on myself to do that by doing it with the home screen on where I have something that's lit. So give me a second here while I do that. Alright, so I've got my masking tape in place, and all my measurements are going to either be from this edge outward or from the bottom up. So sort of the origin of all my measurements is in the lower left hand corner. I need to remember that when I'm filling in the options within OpenSCAD. I'm just going to use my ruler here to sort of eyeball it. And I've got a paper here I made up just to keep some order here, and so I don't put some measurement in the wrong place and later have to figure out what I did. So what I can do is I'm just going to start with the first opening I want to create, which is number 1, and I've assigned that to this big message bar at the top. I'm going to want to get the x coordinate and the y coordinate for this point at the lower left hand corner. Even though it's not a rectangular shape itself, it's sitting within a rectangle, and this will be the important point to understand. What is that lower left hand corner of the rectangle that encloses the object that I want to cut a hole for? We'll cut a differently shaped hole, but it'll be relative to that location. And x coordinate means distance from the edge of the screen to the right until we come to this point. Y coordinate, we're going to be measuring from the bottom of the screen up to this point. So x is always a horizontal measurement, y is always a vertical measurement. We'll see that we'll do things slightly differently when we take our measurements using a screenshot rather than just measuring directly on the app with a ruler. But for now, lower left hand corner, y is this way, x is this way. And so I'm going to take my ruler, let's see if I can get it nice and close here. And I'm going to measure from the edge of the tape to kind of a line coming down right here from this point. And that looks to be about, see if I can get a better angle for you. Well, actually, I can even roll it up here to see how far that little circle extends. It extends about to 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters from the edge. So I'll write a 3 in here, in this box for the x-coordinate. And we'll move on. Y-coordinate. Tape from here to the bottom of that shape. Let's see if we can see that better too. And that looks to be about 91, maybe 91.5 millimeters. And while we can't put fractional parts of millimeters into the customizer in OpenSCAD, this data is going into another location where you can put fractional parts. So I'm going to just say 91.5 millimeters for the y-coordinate. The width, now this part I'm not taking it all the way to the edge of the screen, I'm just taking it from, whoops, I'm using the wrong units. Taking it from one edge of the object to the other edge of the object. It looks like it's about 153 millimeters wide. 153. And its height is getting bugged there. Its height is about 22.5 millimeters. Clearly this is going to be a hot dog shape when it's done, because it's basically rectangular with a couple of semicircles on either side. So I'm just going to record that, though I'll also have my screenshot available to me when I'm putting this data in, so I'll be able to remember what I chose here. But it's a hot dog. Now, let me put the rest of our tree in place. So I'm going to repeat that effort for all the other objects that I want, all 18 of them. But I'm not going to take you through that entire process. It just looks exactly the same as what I just did, but for the other objects. And I'm going to completely fill out my little cheat sheet here so I can make good progress when it comes time to enter the data. One point of interest, sometimes there are objects that are small. I want to give access to them as much as possible, and if I just limited myself to the outer dimensions of this little object here, it'd be really hard to physically get in there and touch the screen. So in cases like this, you just use your best judgment. I'm going to make this a much larger opening that includes that arrow, that chevron, and it may extend up even, say, maybe halfway between the arrow and the message bar up above, maybe halfway between the arrow and the icon, button, whatever down here. So things don't have to fit exactly. Also, there will be opportunities to modify our numbers at a later time. So I'll meet you when we've got all these done.